Right, because looking at the point scores and how their evaluation, the standard deviation, how they take less and less and less, right? You're looking at Alabama being ranked number 67 right now because of the one commit that they do have, who is highly rated, right? Is still the one commit that they do have, which puts them just ahead of Utah and just behind Temple, right? We're talking about Central Florida, Syracuse, Memphis, Western Michigan, Appalachian State, Arizona State, Rice, Miami of Ohio, Georgia Tech, Brigham Young, South Florida, all being ranked ahead of Alabama, and that's just getting to number 45 on this list. I guess what I'm outlining here is this ridiculously weird 2021 cycle because nobody knows what they're doing. And I've been lampooning Nick Saban for this for the past 5 days because I think it's just funny and it's a position of privilege. The man just got his own email account that he operates on Friday. It's 2020. It took a pandemic. It took not being able to leave the state and leave your house for Nick Saban to have to get IG. And he still doesn't have a Twitter account to my knowledge, right? And I think for once, it's going to bite him. Now, the more we get to a place where we don't necessarily see football on the horizon, the more it can look like Alabama's going to have a really difficult time putting together even a quality class because you're not getting the in-home visit, right? That's where Nick Saban is able to just swoop in and take kids. Like, taking, for instance, Jace McClellan, right? If he's not able to get the in-home and he's not able to show face, I don't think he swings that. And I think that's the same with half the classes that he puts together. I think it's such a big deal for him to be there in December and for him to be able to say, look at who I'm going to send into the NFL this year and look at what we did this past year. It's a huge deal for him to be able to travel and do more than talk on the phone at a time when the guys who are able to text, the guys that are able to use Messenger, to use DMs, to do Zoom, to use Instagram, whatever means they have to on the technological side are actually winning, specifically with the kids that are out of state. Because I understand Oklahoma wants some guys that are out of state because it's Oklahoma, right? We understand that I am in the minority when I say I think you could field a bunch of Okie kids and you can go win for reasons that have more to do with pride necessarily than ability. That said, Texas is home base. And you go and you recruit Texas. That's just what you do. But at a time when Ohio State is able to go across the country to secure commitments, and they're getting guys from Virginia, and they're getting guys from Texas, and they're getting guys seemingly from Washington and from Missouri, I fail to see what the big difference is, as Day is supposed to be 1-1 with Lincoln Riley when you're talking about offensive prowess, being a younger coach, being a guy that inherited a pretty good program and a pretty awesome staff, and all of a sudden we're going, wait a second, what are they doing that everybody else is doing? And to that end, Mac Brown, right, who's Nick Saban's age, is out here closing the deal. You know, and I got a hard time with it, but again, it's a weird cycle for everyone, and at this point, you're having to depend on decommitments and flip commitments as opposed to earning commitments, and however you do it is however you do it. But I tend to look at it and say, if a kid knows he's going to be a part of an outstanding class, he usually is going to stick, right? Because he wants to play with those dudes, not necessarily because he wants to be the guy standing apart. And I think Tumise underscored that for me.
The biggest thing for me right now that's kind of being revealed is, in my opinion, the programs that are really getting through the situation have the unique combination of youth and built-in reputation. And that's why, to me, Ohio State is currently dominating the recruiting scene. When you think about, okay, you're the Oklahoma Sooners, right? You have that offensive prowess that you mentioned. You have the social media aspect. You've utilized digital resources so effectively. But at the same time, Tumise Adelier said to you on your YouTube channel, I sure hope Alex Grinch stays around because I want to see what that defense does in the future. Well, the difference between Alex Grinch and that defense's future and Ohio State's defense and its past is that one is certainly more fortified than the other, right? And you can fall back on previous reputation. And obviously, like Ohio State smartly did, tweeted out that video of all the defensive ends currently in the NFL out of Ohio State. There's a reason why prospects like Tumise, when unable to go be on campus and speak with guys like Grinch, who are just starting to sort of rebuild the fort, they're going to look at the programs that know they have a body of work to prove to you, hey, we can put you in the NFL because we've been doing it for a while. thing is here, yeah, OU is doing really well, specifically on the offensive side of recruiting during this pandemic because they've got the built-in reputation to go with the social media presence. But fans are getting frustrated, and I think we're not talking about enough. Right now, bottom line, OU doesn't have that defensive reputation to fall back on to combine with all of that youth and smart digital presence that they're currently bringing to the table. If they had it, if Grinch had been doing this for maybe 3 years, there's no doubt in my mind that they're in a much better position with Tunmise moving forward. And that's going off of my knowledge. That's nowhere near as close as yours. But at the same time, you just feel like that has some warrant to it because, man, Grinch did something remarkable in just one season and caught the attention of a guy like Tunmise who, to be quite honest, really had no business taking him seriously when that thing really got started. So that's, for me, it's what's been really interesting about Ohio State. They're such a unique program right now because they're better than Alabama when it comes to that digital presence, but they're also better than Oklahoma when it comes to built-in defensive reputation or NFL caliber talent back in. It's all working in their favor, and that's why you're seeing a program like Oklahoma struggle to get guys like Tunmise during this pandemic.
All right, so from that to something a little bit more whimsy, I want to bring this to your attention if you haven't seen already. So, yeah, man. Last thing I want to leave on is, all right, now that my most wanted recruit for Oklahoma is off the board, outside of Caleb Williams, who does OU need to land? And by my most wanted recruit for Oklahoma was Tunmise for, just check that podcast. I've been talking about Tunmise for a very long time, and I think he's going to be tremendous at Ohio State. Love that kiddo. Who do you have?
Yeah, I've said for a while that Bryce Foster is the guy for me on the offensive line, specifically considering the fact that there's probably a limited amount of scholarship offers to spread out on that offensive line class for 21. Mm-hmm. That being said, I'll kind of go off of it and give you another one. I think it's going to be really pivotal that Oklahoma lands either Kamar Wheaton or L.J. Johnson at running back when you really look at this running back group. Obviously, right now, Kennedy Brooks heading into what will be its final season. Sermon's out. A lot of youth in that backfield with some injuries and things like that. I think, obviously, if you're going to wait on the Series 3 and if a running back isn't a part of it, you'd really like to round out that running back class because it's starting to kind of remind me of, okay, let's say they do get Caleb Williams. Let's say they do get a couple of those wide receivers we talk about. It's very similar back in the day when they landed Spencer Rattler. They got Theo. They got Jaden. They got Trajan. They got Stogner. But then they kind of lost out on like Noah Kane. And it just left kind of a gaping hole there in the recruiting class. And then obviously Marcus Major filled that gap. So I think it's going to be really interesting. Number one, obviously the guy Bryce Foster that I'm really keyed in on. And then number two, how Oklahoma handles that running back race, especially because from what I'm hearing, Kamar Wheaton, he's got a couple of different options that he's evaluating. And it may not work out in Oklahoma's favor at this stage unless things drastically change regarding the pandemic. So it's all very, very interesting. And obviously we can go on and on about whichever defensive talent they got to get. But at this point, they need anything and everything on that side of the football.
Yeah, I'm going to go with just the critical mass of Oklahoma's offense being able to carry itself and be able to either land somebody late that they want or just be able to pick somebody up off the transfer portal, whether it be a wide receiver or running back, as you said. Quarterback's a little bit different, but I don't think Lincoln Riley's ever going to have a problem getting quarterbacks to come to Oklahoma. So that's why I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm going to go ahead and, man, look, it's hard to say they should get a defensive tackle as the guys that you would want are basically off the board, and there's a reason as to why we keep saying follow the defensive tackles to find out where you're going to be really good, follow the defensive ends to find out where college football is going to be really good. Outside of that, follow the safeties that can play multiple positions, right? Dax Hill, Josh Proctor. That's why I'm going to go with Kendall Daniels, right? That is an in-state kiddo who has offers from Bama, Georgia, LSU, Clemson, among others. That's enough for me, right? And he had those offers way after he had his offer from Oklahoma. He's from Beggs. He's in the state. Pay the visit. Get him on the phone. Make sure he doesn't leave the state because you really want the safety help. You really want a guy that can play nickel and free and strong. And you really want a guy who everybody else wants because you taking a third L on a top safety in this state, where usually one of the top 3 spots in this state goes to a safety, is just not a good look, especially with a regime change, right? Dax Hill, you can put on Mike Stoops, Kerry Cooks. You can do the same thing with Josh Proctor. That guy went to Michigan. That guy went to Ohio State. You cannot afford to watch Kendall Daniels go to LSU, Georgia, Clemson, or Alabama. It's just not going to be a good look. I think from the optic standpoint and from the standpoint of putting together an outstanding defense, that is the place to go. And I would throw in a defensive tackle here, but I feel that strongly about Kendall Daniels. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, Daniels is kind of one of the must-land prospects on the defensive board, not only because you mentioned he's a defensive back, he's an in-state guy, but in my opinion, he's easily got the frame to eventually transition to the outside linebacker spot. So keeping that in consideration, the versatility he brings to the table, no way you can let that guy leave.
Well, that is Colin Kennedy. Follow him on Twitter at @CKennedy247. That's CKennedy247. Does outstanding work at OUinsider.com. Had a great note series up following on Quinn Ewers. It's going to be interesting to see what he does, especially when we find out what Caleb Williams ultimately does. Lots of good news over at OUinsider.com. Today, Thursday, when this goes up, 60% off for VIP. It's about $358. What is it, a month there, Colin?
Yeah, it's cheap, man. Come join us. We've had over 100 signups just to begin April. I know we're number 3 currently in the network in VIP signups and currently trending upwards. So come join one of the fastest rising OU communities and a great place to get all of your OU sports and recruiting information. A lot of fun.
Right on. Appreciate you, Colin.
Yes, sir. Always fun.
All right, man. Talk to you next week.